Okay, our first coach from the University of Arkansas, Brett Bielema, going into his 50-year career coaching record of 93 wins and 50 losses, has taken Arkansas to 3 consecutive bowl games, top 20 ranking each of the last 2 seasons, and 3 days ago became a dad. Most importantly, I had arrived home Saturday. I had texted congratulations to Brett. All of a sudden, my phone said he was FaceTiming me. That's never happened. I've never FaceTimed with a head football coach in the SEC. And so you have that decision, should you answer or not. I decided to answer the phone. And he said, "Why are you calling me?" And I said, "Why are you calling me?" I thought he was going to share this moment like with his wife and his daughter with the conference commissioner. And he said, "Well, I'm just leaving Chipotle. There was a mistake. I didn't mean to call you." Brett Bielema.
That's an introduction like no other, right there from the commission. It was kind of funny because I had received a lot of different phone calls, texts during the course of the day from some of my SEC brethren, some of the head coaches and different people from the SEC office, and I did get the text from commission. I'm like, wow, that's kind of nice. I didn't respond to everybody, so don't take it personal if I haven't responded to you yet. I had about 500 messages, but I did text him, and I'm like, that's pretty cool. And I was kind of thinking to myself, and I was walking out of, my wife wanted some double veggie bowl from Chipotle, trying to get an endorsement right there. And I was walking out and I recognized the FaceTime down. I'm like, pulled it out and I see Greg Sankey's name, and I'm like, wow, this is pretty cool. The commission's FaceTiming me. That's pretty unique. And he goes, "Why are you calling me?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I must have butt dialed you. I apologize." So that was a unique experience. I appreciate. But excited to get here. Excited to bring the 3 guys with me. I know you guys follow our program, but the 3 guys here that are representing us today are very, very special, unique to me, because now going into my 5th year as a head coach, these guys are all guys that I had recruited or decided to make a scholarship offer to, and 2 of the 3, one was a former walk-on. Frank Ragnow is by far one of the most talented players I've ever coached, both on and off the field. Tremendous person. Excited to see him come back and return for his senior season. Austin Allen will stand in front of you as a guy that's going to have an SEC graduate patch, a pin on his lapel that we're very proud of. He's actually graduated already, started master's classes. We'll get about 2/3 of the way through his master's before he ever is finished playing college football for us. A very, very talented player that's going into year 2 as our starter. And then Kevin Richardson is a former walk-on that, again, just really embodies everything I believe in. He was a little undersized, under-recruited, underdeveloped. Coming out of high school, we presented him an opportunity to walk on. Really, in the first 2 weeks, I knew we had something. Probably one of the most intelligent football IQ players I've ever been around. Plays all 5 DB positions and is a great leader off the field. Just really blessed to have those guys with us. I feel really good about where we're at. Obviously, the end of last season was a unique situation for me. And in fact, even when we went 3-9, which I've never had a losing season in my career, other than that first year at Arkansas, I felt at the end of the year we were getting better and moving in the right direction. And last year, our last 2 games were not highlights. They were, especially the way they both ended. So I knew we had to take some new looks at things. So we took an internal look at us coaching-wise, what we were asking them to do, how we were asking them to do it. Took an even stronger look at our personnel, which made us drive the decision to change to a 3-4. And then bottom line, what we were going to do moving forward in January. And our kids have been great. They've owned and embraced what we didn't do well at the end of the year. Focused on what we can do well. We're going to focus on winning games in the second half, not losing them. Putting our best personnel on the field, no matter how that comes about. And then really trying to play and understand what it means to be at Arkansas and have that come through. I've had a lot of former players, players that were before my time, as well players that have been there with us that have had success come in and talk to our guys about what it means to be a Razorback. I think that's been a huge, huge thing. So very excited where we're at and where we're continuing to go. We start camp a little bit earlier than everybody else because we play a Thursday night game in Little Rock, which should be a really neat experience for us. It gives us an extra day of preparation as we go into an opportunity to play TCU, another crossover game in our league. That should be a lot of fun. We have a bye week before we go play A&M in Jerry's World over in Cowboy Stadium, and then the rest of our schedule lays out in a pretty good, favorable fashion. Last year, I think we had 2 or 3 teams that had bye weeks before they play us. Nobody has a bye week before they play us this year, which I think is a nice stroke for us in the right regards in scheduling. So with that, open it up for some questions.
All right, thank you, Coach. If you have a question, please raise your hand. Again, please give your name and affiliation. Please stand. We'll start here in the center aisle to our right, Coach.
Hey, Coach. Todd Palmer with the Kansas City Star. Obviously, you guys had a bit of a tough end to last season. I was wondering whether the Missouri loss in particular lingered at all for the guys in the offseason, provided some motivation. And do you think games like that, obviously not the outcome you want, but do they help stoke that rivalry a little bit?
Well, I think the Missouri rivalry, both Barry and I have said, and then even going back with Coach Pinkel, anything we can do to flame that fire is a good thing for everybody. I've even had some conversations with our high school all-star game, maybe being a crossover game to play a high school team from Missouri, you know. So that's kind of building on its own. It's hard to create a bunch of history overnight, but that's happening. If losing in the second half helps stoke that fire, God bless them. I'm all for it, but we didn't do it for that reason, obviously. But I think that the way that not only the Missouri game, but the second half of Virginia Tech, we played really well in those first halves. We played extremely well and didn't play well in the second half. To examine that, why it happened, we had to look internally first as coaches and then carry it over a little bit with discussion with our players. I think they had some great input and some ideas as well, and just kind of move forward from there. But I'm excited. I think the SEC and the TV people to honor us with that Friday afternoon spot with Missouri, I think it's pretty cool at 1 o'clock again, and hopefully continue to build that thing up.
Coach, we'll go right here in the middle section, about 4 rows back.
Stephen Smith, Touchdown Alabama magazine. Coach, Jared Cornelius had a big game last year for the Crimson Tide. I think he had 5 catches for 146 yards. Who are some guys after him that are really starting to grow in your mind?
Yeah, Jay Red is a tremendously talented player. I think we did a postseason study that showed that he was actually one of the most productive slot receivers in all of college football last year with the numbers of receptions he had and the number of snaps he took. A very, very confident young man. I think he'll have his best year going to his senior year. At wide receiver, we signed 2 junior college players that I feel really have adapted the game well, that we brought in and have made a nice impact on us, as well as a couple younger players in our program, Deion Stewart, LaMichael Petway, some guys that I think can step up into a role that's pretty significant, and they've been working really hard. I know Ben Herbert in the weight room has felt good about what they're doing, and we're excited to get them out there.
Coach, we'll go over to my side on the left over here on the aisle.
Olin Buchanan, TexAgs.com. Coach, 2 years ago here you described a win over Texas as being borderline erotic. I was wondering if you are able to beat A&M with the way things have gone in your series with them, how do you think you would describe that?
I know you guys are all looking for quotes. I don't think I can go much further than that one. That was in a small group session, and that was before I had a child, so I'll just leave it there. But I think, the respect for the program. I think A&M, what they did when they came in the league, the way Kevin was able to do certain things, and then obviously, to play that game in Cowboy Stadium. It's actually a year that Jerry Jones is going into the National Football League Hall of Fame. That is tremendously cool, and for us to be able to be there with them in that fashion, and we've been so close. Have a couple overtime games, a couple things that we felt were going in the right way to have a change to get a victory over A&M. I think it's our first SEC game would be a step in the right direction. But one of the things that we do in our program, whether it's right, wrong, or indifferent, we literally take it one game at a time. And I know we're in the kickoff luncheon or kickoff meeting, so we got to talk about all those games. So we're going to worry about FAMU. We're going to get on TCU, and then A&M opportunity comes, and our guys I think will be ready to play.
Okay, Coach, we'll go to our right over here on the aisle.
Chase Goodbread with NFL.com. Coach, last year you mentioned that you would be in favor of a rule that would allow undrafted underclassmen to come back to school. Wondering if you've been able to gather any momentum on that at all. And as a part 2 to the question, how do you feel about this new agreement between the NFL and the AFCA that started this past spring, where some underclassmen get to go through drills with scouts, and so that scouts can get some more information?
Again, I think it's a step in the right direction, positive. I give Commissioner Sankey a lot of credit. I think, one of the things that's evolved since I've come in this league is just that each year there's a whole new set of issues that come up, and to be proactive to all of them is a step in the right direction. I know as a group of coaches, we came to commission last year into the SEC and asked for us to change some legislation maybe, or put forward some legislation that allow our guys to have a better showing for the NFL that's more real, you know. So, for instance, I allowed several guys that I felt were juniors that if they play the way they can be, that they might be NFL eligible at the end of next year. So I let them take heights, weights, measurements, academic profiles, some limited testing that allows them to get a better feel. Is he really 6'2", or is he really 6'1.5" or 6'1.5", you know? So I think that's a step in the right direction. It's a baby step. I think we also had some more discussions this past spring about what we could do to progressively make this a little better if they do declare themselves, you know, and move back that declaration date. I know Nick and several other coaches in our league had proposed moving that date back a little bit to allow our guys to have a better understanding. I think there's times now where we have a bowl game, maybe it's in January, and a kid feels the pressure, or he's hearing from outside sources that he needs to make a decision sooner than later, that he makes a decision maybe before the bowl game even takes place, which tells me, A, he's not focused on his priorities, but also B, he's getting some information from people that really shouldn't be gathering and giving information, and that leads to an uninformed decision. You know, I have a case in point where I had a young man 2 years ago, left early in the draft, didn't get drafted, and he has the ability to possibly start in the NFL now in year 2. For him to be an undrafted free agent, the money that he lost is never going to be regained, you know. And I knew he had that ability, but we were just all in a hurry. You know, we're in the microwave world where everybody wants things done in 20 seconds. You know, sometimes it needs to be cooked for 2 hours, and we got to figure that out and try to help our kids.
Okay, we'll go here in the center section, back in the middle.
Coach Bill Bender, Sporting News. How has the continuity on the offensive line improved throughout the spring, and how can you continue to build around that with Frank?
Great point. So one of the things that we do is, like even in our spring game, we go ones against the world. I believe with offensive line play, you have 5 guys that are attached in everything that they do. You always see O-linemen, they all go eat together. They all go watch a movie together. They all go do everything together, because we breed that in our program. Because for that left tackle, he's playing next to the left guard, but he needs to understand what the center's yelling and doing, or what the right guard's going to do on a kickout play. There's a continuity that has to develop, and we have 6 guys that have started SEC football games for us now on the offensive line. That's so much of an improvement from a year ago. Coach Anderson's had another year with this group. We've had a better addition. You know, one of the major issues with us last year in protection and taking care of our quarterback and being able to run a football is we just did not have enough of SEC quality offensive linemen in our program. I myself had not done what I needed to do to give us the numbers early on in those classes to get us there, or some guys had left a little bit early because they played well. So I feel really, really good about where that group is. I like the fact that they've taken some shots and they've survived, and I really think that they're in a mode to really prove some things this fall.
Okay, Coach, we'll go over to our right. Jason on the front row.
Jason Kersey, SEC Country. Brett, can you give us an update on the status of Montarik Brown and Melvin Johnson? I noticed Melvin wasn't in the media guide.
Yeah, absolutely, Jason. When we recruit players, we try to sign guys or put guys in a position that we feel that they're going to project to make it and qualify by the standards that the NCAA has. Melvin is a little bit unique in the fact that he was a guy that was at a junior college that we were trying to progress where he could end up in a projection to get here a little bit earlier than maybe he anticipated. So he will not make it by qualification standards, but he has a possibility of possibly joining us in December, depending on what he does and where he's at. Buster is currently doing everything he has to do to get where he needs to be to get here by the time fall camp. He is so close that if that doesn't happen here in the next couple of weeks, I do foresee him being able to join us by the time school starts, and at the worst, maybe a January enrollment, but he'll be with us sooner than later.
Okay, we'll go here in the center section, second row.
Jordan Hill with the Columbus Ledger-Inquirer. Kind of an unusual situation last season with Austin replacing his brother as the quarterback. Can you just speak to, you know, how he handled that and the progress you've seen since then going into this spring? Well,
Austin's a smart dude, man. He's, you know, one of the things that I grabbed when BA became the starter and Austin was coming in, I said, hey, here's 3 things you can do. You can sit and watch your brother play. That's kind of cool. You can also learn through your brother's failures, which isn't going to be a lot of fun, but you can still watch it happen. And the third thing is you can enjoy his success and understand why it happened. And I think he did that. You know, I think he was there on every trial and tribulation. He survived it. He lived it. He also saw how he had to handle, you know, to be the starting quarterback in the SEC is not an easy task on the field or off the field. You got a lot of things coming at you. So for him to survive and learn and to go through it a year ago gets me very excited. I think he's got a big chip on his shoulder. Here's a guy that's got some decoration and some awards, but because you play at Arkansas, maybe because he didn't have 5 stars coming in or 4 stars or how many ever stars he had, and maybe he's not tremendously pushed by us, on a sexiness factor or all this, all that. We at Arkansas try to prove what we are by numbers, by doing things that we actually can, put down on paper and believe them. Not a lot of hype or a lot of hubba. It's just, what have he done, And Austin's done some really good things. There's some things that he's got to do better. We had conversations about that. I wouldn't do anything but truly sit back and watch a guy that I think is going to be able to go to some heights that people never thought he'd be able to do. And in the end, he'll probably be the one smiling.
Can we ask you to stand if you ask a question? We're going to go to the back on the left and the back end.
Adam Sparks of Tennessee. And Brett, it's kind of a loaded question, but you guys always talk about your father figures to 100-plus kids every year. Now that you are an actual father, do you see that perspective affected at all, or how does it affect your perspective of anything, being a dad?
I'm 48 hours into this, baby. I can't say as I'm well versed. I think it changes your perspective. I knew it always would. If my girl ends up playing football, we probably got a lot of problems. I'll encourage her to do whatever, but playing football ain't one of them. But I do think, someone asked a question earlier in the local media, that just simply, if someone's got a high school age son, is it worth them to allow them to play football? And I have a resounding yes. I think there are definitely some times where maybe some people that aren't regulated the way they should be regulated on teaching, the fundamentals of the game safely. We've got to make sure that's always impact. I got to tell you, I'll watch a couple times I've gone to a high school practice or an opportunity to watch kids participate, and I'm like, ooh, that just doesn't look right, So that's why I'm on the rules committee. I mean, the rules committee does not pay you a dime. It takes up a lot of my time, and it eats up a week, 3 or 4 days of my free time that I don't like, but I do it because I want to change the game in the right way. I think with the direction of the rules committee, Steve Shaw, who's with the SEC, and several other voices in the room, several years back, we really went after the targeting rule. I know the commissioners all wanted to see our game become safer, and I think we literally, you can ask every one of my players, and I bet you ask every player that comes here from we have changed the perspective of how kids play football. There is no doubt in my mind that there are still going to be some targeting, there's going to be some launching and all that. It's going to come with the game and the fact that it's a game that happens so fast and it's played with a violent manner. But we have kids repeatedly on film that you see maybe 5 years ago would not make the same decision they're making now. They look to keep their eyes up. They look to not take blindside shots. They look to do things the way we're asking them to do because of the way we've implemented rules. So I think that's really cool. I think we just constantly have to be on the forefront of protecting our players. I just lost a player that, and there's no doubt in my mind, he was an NFL player to be. He's a tremendous human being. And I think all the time as coaches, we lose sight. We learn so much from our players. What I've learned from Raleigh Williams, you can't put in words. The things that I witnessed when I was on the field sitting with him and his family, to the time that I went and saw him in the hospital, to when I was reading a quote from him a day after he decided to leave the game where he said, I always thought I had a great plan, but I got reminded once again that he has a better plan, referencing his faith. And it was a moment where I had to take a step back and realize where he was going and what he was talking about. That is a moment as a head coach that is so precious. It's better than any game. Anything that you can ever learn is when you know that you truly have your players' safety at their heart, in your heart. That's a big deal.
Okay, we'll go down here to the left. Tom, second row.
Tom Murphy, Arkansas Democrat Gazette. Brett, what's the timetable for Dre Greenlaw and for camp and part 2? Do you feel like you're going to be a better run defense this coming year, and why would that be?
Can I ask you a question? Where'd you get that shirt? I like it. I like it. I think first Dre Greenlaw, he looks great. He's come back. We witnessed with Dre is he for 2 years, he hasn't been able to complete the season, once with a foot injury and the year before as well. So we constantly are monitoring and looking at what we can do for him to make sure, but he should be 100% go by fall camp. And the other part was just the 3-4 defense, right? Oh, last year, two things that Coach Fry taught me a long time ago about running the football is if you want to win games, you got to run the football and you got to stop the run. And last year, offensively, at times, we weren't able to run the football effectively against good defenses. And on defense, there were times where the game got away from us and stopping the run. So it's been two huge points of emphasis. They kind of fed off one another. So in the spring, I could really emphasize that and work off of it. I think the 3-4 allows us to, just by pure math, you got 11 guys on the field, right? 8 guys now will be on their feet. Will be 2 guys, on 2 feet, being able to change and run, and you just naturally become athletic, more athletic with a 3-4 scheme, I believe, with athletes on the field. There'll be a lot of the same schemes, a lot of the same coverages, but we're coming at it with the ability to bring different pressure. But more importantly, I think in today's world too, the 3-4 aligns quicker and a little bit more simplistic to multiple offenses in a short amount of time, and that should help us.
Coach, we'll go over here to the right side, in the middle.
Blake Totmeyer, Columbia Tribune. Brett, with so many quarterbacks back in the SEC this year, including yours, do you subscribe to the idea or buy into the idea that this could be kind of the year of the quarterback in this conference?
I'm a big believer in the year of the quarterback every year. I mean, obviously, we can only control who's back, who isn't back, who's new, and who's not. But in all my years of doing this, even, before I became a coach, when I was a player, I think I always look back and I reflect on the teams that we had that were successful were teams that had great quarterbacks or quarterbacks that could lead. And then as a coach, that's being reinforced 100 times over. I have so much respect in this league because really within all of our league, especially in the West, every scheme is unique and different. A&M is running an up-tempo spread offense, but their offense is totally different than Auburn's. Auburn's is different than Mississippi State's. Mississippi State's different than Ole Miss. Alabama's a little bit of everything now. We'll see where they go. LSU, I think, is going to be a little more pro-style, but we'll see. Matt and I work together, so a little bit about his offensive background. But that's what's unique in the SEC West is quarterback play is very, very important, but it's also very unique to each team. Some put a little bit more emphasis on what that quarterback can do, not only at the line of scrimmage, but what he can do pre-snap, how he reacts and handles pressure, both mentally and physically. So, yeah, it's always going to be a league of the quarterback. That's why those guys always get a lot of money at that next level. You know what I mean? At our level, they get all the attention. Mine aren't getting money. I don't know about anybody else's, but that part I think is, very, very important. Is that quarterback position is essential to success, and that's not going to change no matter who's back or who isn't, who's there or who isn't there.
Okay, we'll go here in the center section, about midway back, right in front of us.
David Caravella, Post and Courier. Brett, can you take us through how David Williams ended up at Arkansas, and what do you first see as his role in that position?
Yeah, great question. Back when I was at Wisco, I had a fifth-year transfer quarterback by the name of Russell Wilson come in my hands. He was in that position. Really, I went after him because, A, he was a grad transfer, and B, we had an extreme bad luck at quarterback. I had my three most experienced quarterbacks were questionable to be in fall camp. 2 of them ended up not playing that year. One of them was coming off his third ACL repair. So it was just an extreme situation of need, and Russell came up on the screen. This one kind of developed in somewhat the same way. I had actually known David. He actually had come to visit me when I was at Wisconsin. When I made the transition to Arkansas, I actually was on, recruiting or thinking about recruiting David, but he went in a different direction, committed to South Carolina and the SEC. So I made note of that. I knew where he was at. And then, come full circle with Raleigh's situation. And then Juwan Day is another player that probably would have been our 4th-string tailback, came to me, and I knew this was probably coming. He's been through 2 ACLs, just kind of wanted a different pace. So I lost 2 of my top 4 backs. And I know we're going to be fine. Devon Whaley's really good. I recruited 2 freshmen. I've had this a lot in my career where, we lose a running back that's really good, and everybody's always worried worried, and we have another guy come through. So I just really felt I wanted someone a little bit more maturity in the room if I could get it. That presented the opportunity to talk to David. I reached out to the SEC office, asked the questions that I'd have to ask to have him be able to transfer in. Got great information from the SEC office. Really then just started the appeal process. Went through that. I give a lot of credit to Will in South Carolina. They were very cooperative, didn't try to put a block on him or whatnot. I think this young man was recruited by Coach Spurrier and brought in, and things just didn't go his way, and he graduated on time and deserved an opportunity. And again, I give the commission a lot of credit to be forward thinking, and there's some things coming to our game that have just never happened before, you know, and this rule, I'm sure people are going to like it or don't like it. You know, as coaches, I'm a little bit torn. I've seen it be very successful. I actually, on the flip side of it, I had a running back who was a third string running back for me, but he was behind Monty Ball and James White. I knew he was a good player, so he transferred to Pitt, ended up starting for Pitt, and had a chance to play in the NFL. And I was the one facilitated the whole thing because I knew he was going to get buried in our depth chart, you know. So it's something that we got. I think we have to have a radar up about what's going on in our league, because you don't want kids just kind of have the ability to freely do these things or transfer without some restrictions. But again, I give a lot of credit to the SEC in allowing this to happen, because he truly is a kid that's done everything right. He's never had any issues academically or off the field. We had a prior relationship, and to be able to bring him into a position of need, and to start, you know, his grad degree is going to be something that he's interested in, that was a little bit unique to us as well, that allows him to get into some real estate and some different things. So it's really a marriage made in heaven, and been a great addition to campus.
We'll take one final question over here on the left.
Bob, what's the deal, Bob?
Go ahead.
Will Savin from the Clarion Ledger. Coach, going back to the conversation about SEC quarterbacks, your team beat Mississippi State last year, but their quarterback, Nick Fitzgerald, accumulated a lot of yards both on the ground and through the air. I was curious what made him so hard to limit, and there's been a lot of talk about him becoming a better passer, and I was curious what your thoughts are of him as a passer as well.
Absolutely. I think two things. First, very tremendously talented young man that's got size, speed, agility, throws the ball very well. And the second thing is Dan Mullen. I think Dan Mullen has proven obviously what he can do at the quarterback position and his development and the system that he has. I mean, just don't have to look any further than Dak Prescott and what he's able to do now at the highest level. So I got a lot of respect and admiration for that. We started to see firsthand how he kind of grew, and I knew he got even better after we played him. So going to be a tremendous task in front of us, but seems to be a guy that has got all the things that you need to have position, especially in that type of offense. So, you know, unfortunately for us, it'll be another task for us.
All right, Coach Bielema, thank you for your time.
Appreciate it. Whoop Pig.